Welcome again to another episode of Sneaks, Rhymes, and Life. I am your host, Lionel McDonald. So we talk about sneakers, we talk about hip hop, and things that bring things to life. It really makes it, your world, your life, just that exciting. So special guest we have on, this is one of the OGs in the Toronto market. As we all know, that's where I live. That's why I'm wearing, for those that are going to watch this eventually on YouTube, I'm wearing a Jays hat today, as I love to hold down the six. So we got our good friend Unkle Sean, otherwise known as Sean. Sean, welcome to the pod.
How's it going, Lionel?
Good.
Thanks for having me.
No, I'm so glad. I've followed you on Instagram for years. We really haven't had much dialogue in a long time, but I know you've known me since my in-store retail days. So we go way back, and I'm sure I've served you several times over the years in
Right.
terms of buying stuff. So, but I think when I look at some of your posts on Instagram and things like that, you're definitely a passion for sneakers and certain silhouettes. So where did your sneaker love kind of start? Maybe you could share with the audience what that looked like.
Yeah. So, my sneaker, growing up as an immigrant child and of an immigrant family, respectfully, and growing up in Scarborough, and then my parents moved us to like a very affluent part of Markham when it was, and for those that don't know, it's the greater sort of Toronto area. It was all farmland. So it was me, my friend Jermaine, and my friend Shazzy that were the only sort of color kids in a predominantly white neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And long story short, um, this was when I moved there. It was when I was, I want to say in grade three. And long story short, this is when Jordan was, I guess, had his sort of mark and sort of coming up, if you will. Um, my parents, we lived across the street from a Filipino family. I've told this story before, but long story short, this Filipino family, they were a bit more established than us. And there was two brothers. One was named Alvin, the other one was named Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
Alvin was the epitome of the LL Cool J Filipino version.
That's dope.
Uh, like this is back in the day when Jordan's I remember this so like vividly is because when I was a kid and because they were Asian and so I sort of gravitated toward them and toward other sort of people of color. But Alvin was my cross neighbor. And so I was this little kid um, just sitting on the sideline, like watching them play basketball, right? Mac and girls. Patrick was more of the football player. But I remember Alvin running ball, and this guy would show up in like Jordan tracksuits and like Jordan fours and even threes, and I was like, fuck, like yo, like this guy is so cool, like and me, I didn't have anything. My parents took me to Bargain Harold's. My parents took me to like Byway, and I went from idolizing this across neighbor, and it's who I wanted to sort of emulate later on
Mm-hmm.
in life, right? Or even because I have an older brother, but he also um, influenced my brother, right? And I was influenced by my brother myself.
Yeah.
But that's where I guess my first sighting of like a very cool shoe that wasn't Velcro or left marks on the gym floor kind of thing. So it was one of those things. And in that school, they were ready. Patrick and Alvin were ready in high school. But long story short, I was in public school, and a lot of my friends had Jordans. A lot of them did. A lot of them had pumps. But I remember this one kid. And I don't. I feel like I only seen him once. He was older. He was already in grade eight. I was in grade three or something like that. But or maybe even grade five. But he had Reebok pump first came out, he had the Nike pump.
Oh, I remember those.
And it blew my mind. Like I was like, what the fuck? This is when people like us as kids were doing like long jumping like Ewings, and white
Yeah.
kids used to call them E-wings, and people would go, what the fuck? And when I saw this guy, and I was like, the first thing on the playground I saw was his shoes, because it was something. It was like almost like, you know what it was like? Imagine seeing a kid as a kid. Imagine seeing another kid come onto the playground with like Air Mags on. That's what it looked like to me.
Yep.
I was like, what the fuck is that? Like, I can swear, right?
Yep. Absolutely. Keep
Okay,
going.
okay, okay. So yeah, so I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, what the fuck was that? And I was like, oh my god, man. So growing up, my one of my idols, aside from Jordan, and I wrote a speech on him, was David Robinson. So the admirable,
Yep.
admiral. Well, yeah,
Yep.
the Navy term. Yeah, he played for
Hmm.
Navy. So um, he was a very humble guy. You know what I mean? Was part of the Olympic team and played for the Spurs. But long story short, I wrote a my first speech was on him and his like sort of biography and things of that nature. Anyways, um, I remember he had a pair of Delta Forces, and my I would have accepted anything from my parents, because when I started to see my friends in these new shoes, and coming from Scarborough, like this snotty nosed, raggedy ass kid that, you know what I mean? Like I didn't have much, you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
I could not compare it to what my friends had. And a lot of my friends didn't even care about their shoes. Some of my friends drew on their shoe.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I even know some people that stabbed the air bubble to see if there was really air. You know what I'm saying? Like I I grew up in Sped, but like I mean, like a lot of the kids didn't put uh didn't think of what the value of the shoe was, right? They didn't appreciate that their parents worked night and day to get that shoe for the kid.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, a lot of this was a much more affluent or yeah, affluent part of Markham back then. But um, I remember going to Buffalo one time, and I saw at I think Walden Galleria in Buffalo.
That's the
Uh,
spot.
yeah, the Delta Forces, and I was like, oh my god. My mom's like, okay, you get to choose one pair, like which one? And it's funny, and I don't know if parents do this on purpose, but I think they do. You kind of navigate because your kid follows you, right? So you can kind of navigate where you want your child to sort of shop. You know what I mean?
Yep.
If you're a disciplined kid, like I was, because my parents, they didn't even have to like, well, I've gotten hit, but I mean, like, I shouldn't say that, but I mean, my parents just had to stare at me or look at me and give me that look, and then like I'm obeying whatever they said. But anyways, long story short, I saw these Delta Forces on the shelf, and I was like, yeah, those are the ones. Those are the ones. It was like it was white, blue. They were white and blue. And I my mom was like, okay, if I get you them, like those are your only pair. You know what I mean? Because I wanted the Jordans, right? But like even you know what's funny is that even back then, Jordans were expensive,
Yep.
right? And it's almost like an Apple product. Like it really doesn't go down in price. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So I opted for things that were not Jordan. So like I never had a pair of flights, but I remember Patrick, Alvin's brother, had a pair of flights, red and white, dope. Sickest it was the same one as Fresh Prince.
Yep.
I think it was. But anyways, yeah, I remember one of my first pairs was those Delta Forces, and I still love them to death. I tried to wear them into like for the next year, right? But my feet didn't agree. I have small feet, but I mean, like my feet didn't agree.
Yeah.
I want to say that's one of my first stories, or my first sort of a story that sort of sticks with me. But another story is my brother bought a pair of, I didn't say bought. My mother bought my brother a pair of infrareds, and when we were living in Scarborough, Um, and being the youngest kid, I always got whatever my brother got. You know what I
Yep.
mean? But I got it like kind of beat. But my mother tells me to this day that she traveled from Scarborough all the way to Kiel and Seven, took like 4 or 5 buses to get there. Like this is when before like the subway and like more of a rapid transit sort of system or infrastructure. But long story short, she got my brother infrareds, and I remember first seeing that an air bubble.
Hmm.
It was like it
Game
blew my
changer.
mind. Yeah, it blew my mind. It blew my mind. I was thinking to myself, I was like, fuck, like this is it's weird. But not only that, it was also more expensive than what we were used to
Hmm.
spending. You know what I'm saying? But those were my two sort of standout sort of moments where I remember shoes. Growing up in I'm 42, so I grew up in 80, and growing up in the 80s and the 90s, card collecting, which is cyclical, I guess, because
Yeah,
it's
it
coming
always
back.
good things always come back.
Exactly, right. And so I still have some Beckett's. Like I still have some Beckett's like laying around. Like I can probably get them. But long story short, I grew up selling, collecting baseball cards, comics, and things of that nature. My dad used to take me to this store at King and John called Legend of the Games
Yeah,
before
I
the Jays
remember it
game.
well. Right when we used to go there after a baseball game.
Yeah, and then well, we used to go there either before or after, but it was usually before, and then after the Jays game, we would go to Licks, the one on Young. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Back in the day, where they used to sing to you and stuff like that. But
Yep.
either way, but yeah, it was. I grew up in that sort of era, and I always attribute me collecting baseball cards and things of that nature to, and it kind of propelled me and transcended into me. This is sound. I'm not a hoarder by any means, but I do collect things. So when it came to like baseball hats or like, do you remember a store in Scarborough Town Center called Expressions?
Yep. Sure do.
Okay, yeah, they sold hats, and it was right around the corner from Stitches, where that
Yep.
Walmart is now. But anyways, I used to collect different. So whatever my outfit was, I would match it with my hat. You know what I
Okay.
mean? And so I would collect hats from even back then. Um, but so that kind of transcended into sort of sneakers when I got my first job at a sneaker store in '99.
All right.
I worked at Athletes World Nike shop. Um, didn't have any idea of I don't want to say any idea. I didn't have uh I never knew that there was such a, I want to call it a cult following back then, right? It was still very, very niche, but it was
Yeah.
very of a sort of a cult following. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was one of the beginners of that cult following, but I was an early adopter. Once I kind of got
Mm,
I got in, and I liked shoes in high school. Whether it was Bo Jackson's, I think was one of them. You talk
yep.
about pumps. I had pumps. That was my high school basketball shoe. But I think eventually, once I got into the retail world, I definitely loved Deion Sanders prior to working retail, and that was probably my gateway shoe, if I would say. The
Yeah.
Diamond Turf, the OG one, and I bought it again 10 years later or 10 years ago when it first retroed again. I had to have it again because I just have so many fond memories. I played university football, and that was my training shoe. I wore it the whole school year, the only shoe I had. If you saw
Yeah.
Lionel coming, Lionel was coming in Diamond Turfs.
Right.
Whichever
Right.
the occasion was, Lionel was wearing Diamond Turfs because I was a poor university student, but that was the shoe.
Yeah.
But I think the things really got rolling once I bought my first pair of Air Force, white and goldenrod with the jewel swoosh, and
Okay.
it was game over after that. Soon
Really.
after was the Bread 11, which was the first Jordan I ever bought, and I still remember this kid in high school. And I even went to him in elementary school named Greg Davis. He told me that I would never own a pair of Jordans. Boy, was he wrong.
Yeah.
So anyways, if we keep it moving, there's obviously it's late November, and probably this podcast is going to go out in December based on I put out one a week. But in Canada, we know that the winters can be terrible. Sleet, snow, salt, which is all terrible for your shoes. So what shoes do you wear in the winter, in that winter rotation?
So it's funny that you asked me that. So yeah, Canada. Well, let's just be entirely transparent. Toronto doesn't get it as bad as, let's just say, Buffalo got fucked, yes, or like last week. You know what I mean? Or
Mm-hmm.
like we like it kind of sits on a different sort of scale. We're not as bad as like Chicago and Midwest or other parts of Canada. But what am I wearing? So to be entirely honest, I work from home.
Yep.
And in the winter months, I hunker down. If anything, I'm leaving my house to go to the gym or to get groceries.
Yep.
So my gym shoes, big ups to winners, like beaters. Like I really, the funny thing is this: I've come up on at some winter stores, and I need to find a pair of shoes that I don't care about beating down. I always thought of wearing nice pairs of shoes. And a lot of my boys make fun of me on this because I used to call people out on the street straight up. I don't know you, straight up and down. Like I don't know you, but I'm calling you out because you're doing deadlifts and like whatever. You know what I mean? Concord 11s or like whatever. You know.
Mm-hmm.
But so I when I go to the grocery store, I'm wearing these Air Max. I think they're called Mystic Dates. They have a little mini swoosh. It's all leather.
Mm-hmm.
They're nice. But the reason I wear that is because they're leather. Suede, you're 100% right. I'm not. Suede stops in like fall. Do you know what I
Yep.
mean? Right when it starts to get wet or like whatever, like it stops at fall. But yeah, I'm wearing those. I will kick around in some old school like Nike like sort of like hiking boots sometimes. But yeah, I mean like I work from home, so I don't really go out that often, and I'm
Yep.
older now, so I mean just I don't go out to drink as often. Actually, I quit drinking for the past. Well, I quit drinking and smoking. I've been smoking for like 30 plus years, but
Okay. Good
so
for
yeah,
you.
yeah, I've been staying home and stuff like that. But that's the only dull part of my sort of sneaker sort of
Yeah.
story. But yeah, that's the honest truth there.
Yeah. Spring and summer, you get it popping though, right? So.
Well, that's exactly it. You know what I mean? Like you got so many shoes that you got to rock. Like, and people make fun of me all the time because like I'll leave the house like maybe like 2 or 3 times in a day.
And
But
you
I'm
leave with a
always
different pair. People don't
yeah,
get it.
because no, people make fun of me. Like my neighbors would be like, weren't you wearing a totally different pair of shoes? And I'm like, yeah, but I mean, like, I feel like everything should get some sort of attention at some point in time. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? So, but yeah, they don't get it, and people make
Yeah.
fun of me. But
That's okay. That's why we have a niche thing called sneaker culture, and it's not for everyone.
exactly.
Yeah. So obviously, we kind of mentioned the pandemic and the last couple of years and how hard it is to buy sneakers. So, you love Air Max. You love the classics, but and some things have been re-released over the last couple of years. There, infrared 90s come out. Air Max 97 just came out recently, the silver bullet. A couple of years there in the OG 95s came out. So how do you shop now? Do you still go to stores? You buy it online? You if there's a
So
drop, like what does it look like for you now?
yeah, so many people know that the North American market, um, predominantly because my forte, I would say, is more in like Air Maxes and things of that nature that are or runners or trainers that are not necessarily like ball shoes. The North American market is predominantly a ball sort of market, right?
Yep.
And size runs here start from 8 to maybe 13, maybe 12. You know what I mean? For the most part, when you go into the US, you get up to 14, 15s and so on and so forth. But
Mm-hmm.
um, I would always buy 8 here, right? But my true to size is actually 7.5, right?
That's a tough size.
So, oh, dude, it's so tough, man. It's so tough. Like everyone's like, oh, like so. In answer to your question, uh, I've always bought 8 here. So I have a lot of pairs that are 8 that are older. Big ups to Hung. Hung used to own a store called Stolen Riches at
Love that store. Love that
yeah,
store.
at Queen and
I would
Tecumseh.
walk from Eaton Center to get to that store. That was on like the sneaker path when you kind of you leave
Yeah,
the
Long
mall and
Queen.
go west on Queen. You
Yeah.
had to walk all the way to Stolen Riches before you came back.
Yeah, so the funny thing about Hung was, and I don't know if it's like because of his wife, but like he had a lot of his shoes in the back. And I don't because I don't think he had room. He was kind of like you know what I mean? And I'll be honest with you, Lionel. It's an honor to be interviewed by you because I feel like it came full circle in a way,
Mhm.
right? And for people to that don't know the sort of backstory, and sorry, I'm always sort of like going in different directions, but um, uh, I interviewed Lionel. I did a thesis for my university project, and it was on sneaker culture in Toronto and the brand loyalty of sneaker collectors and things of that nature. And my homie Omari, you know Omari,
Of course.
uh, Omari,
Big Seb as we call him.
exactly. So Omari was like, "Yo, you should hit up Lionel," and I was like, "Lionel." So I had all these homies like kind of like lined up, and I was like, "Okay." Uh, so yeah, like, and you gave me a great interview. I sent you like that little clip. I'm still trying to figure out how to, and this is me being old, I guess, trying to take something from a DVD and put it onto like YouTube or like something a
Yep.
bit more sort of on a better platform. But yeah, I felt like this is a true honor and I appreciate it. But going back to your story, going back to my story, Hung actually, so thank you. So Hung actually uh, was the same size as me. So I would go in the back stock room and be like, okay, it was like fucking Jay-Z City's Mind video. It was like, I was like, okay, I'll take
I'll take
that.
that
You know
whole
what I mean?
row.
I'll take that. It was just without people in fucking dollies bringing up my fucking shit, but like I
Yeah.
was like, yo, I'll take that. So a lot of my stuff, some of my older stuff, I've gotten from some true collectors like Hong, and I appreciate him a lot. We still talk. But yeah, it was very my my passion for sneakers has made me have relationships and friendships overseas
Mhm.
because overseas Air Maxes are a more it's a more sought after. No, I don't want to say sought after. They're more readily available there. There's more of a market there, right?
Yeah.
And so I've have been so fortunate to make friends that work at stores over there that would help me secure some pairs and then send it over here. I've always kind of shopped online. I think I looked at my eBay account. I think I've been a member for 22 years or 23 or something.
Wow.
Yeah, I've been eBaying way because the thing is, I don't think kids understand that the internet, as much as it was available to us, we're talking about like fucking when we had dial up. You know what I'm saying? Like we had,
They have no idea. Like you had to if someone was on the phone, you were not
yeah,
using the internet. Like and that's like crazy to many people, right? But that was a thing. I was like, get off the
yeah,
phone. I gotta hit someone up on MSN Messenger, but you gotta be off the phone.
yeah. But that was the thing is that like the advent of the internet was way even before the 2000s. You know what I mean? The
Yeah,
U.S. military had it, and they were the ones
yeah.
who kind of came up with it. But like we kind of utilized it in a different way. But like we had hurdles that we had to overcome. So if someone picked up the phone and was hearing like that's you're screwed. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
like it wasn't as easy. So I always went to like Nike Talk, eBay to get some of the shoes. But a lot of the shoes that I would see, even in like Sneaker Freaker magazines, they never came to Canada.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So like, where do I get them? Do I go to New York with some of my friends? Do you know what I mean? Or like, we had Goodfoot over here that kind of had a I don't want. Well, it was a monopoly, so they kind of monopolized the Canadian sort of boutique sneaker boutique sort of thing back then. And they kind of, if you didn't know, this is back in the day, and kids don't get it, that like sometimes you didn't get served. You know what I mean? If you look
Oh
like a
yeah.
punk, and like you don't look like you put in like your sweat equity into like lining up and doing this and doing that, and like you wouldn't get served. Like you would get served if you've paid your dues, and people know that you appreciate the culture, right? And you're going to push it forward and keep it. I don't, some of my friends call me a purist. I'm not a purist per se, but I'm very much a realist.
Yeah.
But I don't think the kids understand how it was then. And so in my documentary, it was funny because I if I were to ask some of those questions now to some of the kids now, I don't think they would get it.
No.
Right? They don't appreciate the lineage, and I don't want to say it's a generational gap. It is definitely a generational gap, and it doesn't only pertain to sneakers. It pertains to the entire culture that surrounds sneakers and what made sneakers what it is, which is hip hop, in my personal opinion,
Yeah.
or like skateboarding and things of that nature, right? Like more of the urban culture. But yeah, it was. I buy most of my stuff online. I don't want to say most, but it's rare for me to find sizes over here in my size.
Yeah.
I love supporting local. Don't get me wrong. If you have my shoe, then okay, cool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Then I'll get it off you. But if you don't, then don't. I've picked up from Livestock many times. But yeah, I do some of them, some of my shopping online.
Okay. So hey,
Yeah.
we got a time limit when you record on Zoom. So
Oh,
we're
yo, my
down to
bad.
that. No worries. No, you get I think some great stories and insights on how things used to be. So this is one of the reasons I wanted you on the podcast. But there's still a couple burning questions that I have that I'd love to
Sure,
kind
yeah.
of get to. So maybe you can quickly give us your top 5 sneakers.
Okay, so I don't have top five, I guess. So what I have here
Give us
is
5 then that you really love.
okay. So these are the Paras. These
Yep.
came out. I don't know how many. Like 2-3 years ago. It's 2000. Yeah, it's, I don't know. The pandemic is all blur. So these are one. I love the detail. I love the box. I'm a box guy. The detail on this is extremely like crazy. I'm very careful when I wear this with regards to season, weather. So I always check the weather. Big up the weatherman there. I always go with classics. I'm an Air Max guy, so this is the anniversary pack though.
Yep.
The newer one's coming up next year with the bigger bubble. I
Mm-hmm.
confirmed that the images that I've seen online are actually, they look really nice from my friend at Nike. So that's two. This is in no particular order here. So
No worries.
yes.
These are gems though.
This is Air Max 90 Clerk pack based off the Clerk movie. They are cracking. I bought them online for very in really good condition for really bargain price. But that's one. The detail on it, I think it's this is like gator skin or whatever the case is, but it's a
It's
very
premium
nice
for sure.
shoe. It's a premium shoe.
Okay, that's 3.
What is this? Oh, here we go. Here's another 90. Size is one of my favorite stores. So Size and Dave White, who's an artist, made a collaboration on their I think I forget, it was an anniversary sort of shoe. The anniversary of the Air Max 95. That's the reason why the color palette is the Air
Makes
Max
sense.
95. Dope shoe altogether. One of my favorites. I got that online also. Some of these shoes I wear with delicacy given the age, and I do kind of gravitate toward older shoes. So what is that, 3?
That's 5.
4?
That's 4. Give us the
4?
last one.
Okay. This is an Air Max. This is Hunk's shoe actually.
It looks like hung shoe.
Yeah, this is Air Max 1 Huffquake. So everyone's familiar with this Huff Quake, which is also, we'll call this 4.5. So this is what I got from
Yeah,
Livestock
that's
back in the day.
beautiful.
But it's a beautiful shoe, detail, perforated leather on this one. This one, which is the predecessor to it, or the one before, I think that I used the word correctly. It's a San Francisco based Huff, based off, I forget the guy's name. I think his name's Kevin Huff something. It's an amazing shoe. I love it. I still have it in really good condition. So that's kind of like 5.5.
Okay. All right. So let's just quickly rapid fire. We only got a couple minutes left here. So clearly, obviously, all Air Max, we saw Air Max 1s or and Air Max 90. So tell us, which do you prefer, Air Max 1 or Air Max 90? Just in general as a silhouette. And let's keep it quick because you only got a couple minutes.
Right. So I'd say an Air Max 1 with regards to durability and longevity of the shoe.
Okay. And then what about Air Max 97 versus 95?
I try to stay away now from bigger bubbles. That's a hard one. I say 97.
Okay. I'm 100% 95. So everyone in different strokes for different folks.
It's
That's why they
it,
make different sneakers for people, right?
yeah.
So we're at time, but Sean, yeah, again, like a full circle moment. You interviewed me like 17 years ago, and here you are on my podcast, and I'm interviewing you. So appreciate your time, appreciate you sharing your love for sneakers and love for Air Max. Maybe you can tell people how they can find you on Instagram.
Yeah, so it's Unkle Sean. So Uncle with a K. So Unkle and then SEAN and then sneakers SNKRS. And that's me on Instagram. And Lionel, again, I want to thank you. It's actually an honor being asked by you, because you are an individual that is kind of, I don't want to say paved the way in a lot of the sneaker culture in Toronto. I don't. Some people may know, some people may not know. But for those that do know, they know what's up. You know what I'm saying, and
Yeah.
they know that you're a real one and things of that nature. So I want to thank you because I don't want to say you, everyone that I've had interaction with up until right now has built me, like has influenced me in some sort of way.